Okay, Maria and Giovanni, so this morning we had a session where we talked about the learning spaces and in both of our centers. And so I want to ask you a question about that now. Maria, maybe we can start with you. What are the main challenges and the main ambivalences, do you think, with having such learning spaces around RI, interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, innovation in centers like, well, DLN for you? What are the main ambivalences that you meet when you work with this in these settings?
Well, I think there are many challenges and ambivalences, but maybe at different scales. So I think one thing is that you have these tensions between the different understandings of collaboration. What should it mean? So you have different understandings of interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, which I think can make confusion about what is really, what do we want to do. So that is one thing. And I also think there are ambivalences relating, or tensions relating to the unintended consequences of these policies, as for instance a policy on transdisciplinarity, how this actually affects early career researchers also in some unintended ways, so that they work, for instance, in a very interdisciplinary project where they depend on getting data, for instance. Say you are a physicist and you depend on getting data from another work package in the project, and then they have some delays in the biology lab, or something goes wrong, was not planned, and then suddenly you don't get the data you should need for your PhD, and then it ends in 3 years, and then you have this delay, which is then very stressful, I think, for many early career researchers. So I think to find a balance between the positive outcomes of collaboration, because there are obvious very positive things about collaboration, but that these policies also have some unintended consequences. I think that's also important to be mindful of when we discuss how policy looks like in practice.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Giovanni, this morning you talked about failures and the importance of kind of normalizing the fact that we are meeting failures in research. And I wanted to ask you a little bit in the same line as Maria, what kind of opportunities do you see with like speaking more openly about failures, but also what are the challenges related to that?
Yeah, I think that failures are very important, especially when we talk about transdisciplinary research, about interactions across disciplines and across sectors that involve actors that are used to different ways of working, and that they are not placed in circumstances in which collaboration is part of their normal skills, of their normal routines, of their core responsibilities. So in those cases, collaborating and working together is difficult. There are not only the differences in vocabularies, in the rhythm of work and the objectives, but there are also these motivational and incentives problems. So when we are dealing with this kind of research, we have to accept that there are many ways in which things can go wrong and may not work as we expected. And this is something that should be talked about much more openly, because often at the level of policy making we have a lot of good intentions. So there are statements that sounds very great, we should do things differently, we should do these things this way, we should open new spaces. But then on the ground, people have to translate these good intentions into reality, fighting with a lot of structural barriers and with a lot of cultural elements that go against the performance of this different kind of work. So I think it's very important to make clear, especially to young researchers who are under a lot of pressure and feel vulnerable and have their career at stake, that not managing to achieve something is normal in this kind of circumstances. And it's okay to talk about that, it's okay to flag the problem, and it's also very much important to learn more about why this moving across disciplines and across sectors proves to be so challenging and doesn't always work as it was expected on paper, so that we can learn from their experience and we can improve and we can build a repertoire of resources to change things, to make more possible for these things to happen. And we do not just sort of outsource the responsibility and the blame for failure at the lower level, because this should instead be a responsibility that is owned and endorsed at the highest level of those who have in the first place called for this work to be performed, not for those who have to perform it in an environment which is not designed for the performance of that kind of research.
Thank you. Maybe I have a last question for you both, actually. So both centers have these learning spaces, and we have talked about the collaborations that we're initiating across those two centers. What kind of other type of collaborations do you see would be fruitful, especially when we talk about sharing learning, about ambivalences and failures and so on? What kind of interactions could AFINO and DLN have around these topics?
I would say that maybe where already there are collaborations, right, between the summer schools, like the research school for the early career researchers. And I think this is a very important thing, and it's nice work that's done already, but things we can also work further on, and to make sure that this more networked community can draw on strengths from the different centers to actually to reach out to more people. So I think that is one thing, and I also think these kind of forums like this, like to get to know each other better, to hear, to share experiences, I think that is also a very nice way of actually starting and then figuring out, so what do you need, what does DLN need, okay, then maybe we should collaborate on this specific topic, you know. So I think to identify where to collaborate is to be able to do that. I think it's important with these kind of meetings also.
Yeah, no, I agree with Maria, and I think it would be probably valuable to create more occasions for projects who have some similar goals or are on similar topics to share experience, to sort of ask also help to each other, because often what capacities are there, but people don't know that there are other people who have valuable experience or that they have tackled with similar problems. And yeah, I think that it's very important to learn in practice, to learn from doing. So also maybe promoting more opportunities for trying this kind of challenging collaboration on low-stake, small projects or experiments that can be done without great resources, but they can bring about some interesting challenges and make people more aware of the tensions and the hurdles that are there, and what kind of steps can be taken to start a change, to start making things different.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for this interview.
Pleasure.